أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to everyone. We immediately going to start and I'm going to ask Muhammad Fasih to open with a dua for us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إله إلا الله الحي الكريم سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم بفضلك دعوة فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحية فيها سلام وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله.
Okay, what I would like to do, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. What I would like to do is maybe just find out if there's anyone who may have had a question or a comment about last week. I think we should just start there and hear if there are any comments or questions. I'm actually opening the floor right at the beginning to find out if there are comments or questions. If not, then I'm going to start immediately then, inshallah. We are now at the point where we're actually dealing with the actual sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that is the actual purpose of why we have started the process, so that we can actually get into the sifat. We've laid the basis. I hope inshallah that it's assisted to some extent for us to grapple with these issues. But we are dealing with the first sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which deals with the actual existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a quality, it's not a description of Allah's abilities and qualities, but it deals with the existence of the actual supreme authority, the creator of everything. We are dealing with the existence of that. Now, we've touched on it last week, and we've dealt with some of the proof, and we're going to go into more proof. Some of it we've covered already, but it's useful for us to refresh our minds and then to ask ourselves whether we can actually explain it ourselves. So inshallah, we're going to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, chapter 51, verse 47, we constructed the universe with power and we are expanding it. Now we will find that, let me just deal with the other one as well. And in another verse, Allah says, I swear by the retreating stars. We will find that some of the most profound proofs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence can be found in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself in the Holy Quran. Now these two verses I've extracted, and we've dealt with it previously when we dealt with how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the universe. But let's just remind ourselves why these two verses are so profound. In 1929, an American astronomer called Edwin Hubble made a discovery that conclusively proved that the universe was actually expanding and that everything was moving away from each other. The universe was growing and growing. I'm not going to go into the technical detail, but this has been conclusively proven, which changed the concept of what people thought at the time of how the universe actually came into existence. Now, if we look at what the top two verses says and what his discovery says, then it confirms what the Quran says. And this has only happened in less than a century ago. Now, if we take what he had said, that the universe is growing bigger every moment that passes as time moves on, so the universe is growing bigger and bigger and bigger, then it must be fairly obvious then, if we reverse the clock and go back in time, then what will happen? The reverse of what is happening now. So instead of it becoming smaller, bigger, with time, we reverse the clock, we go back in time, then the universe will actually become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I've depicted this in a clip. If you have the universe as it is now, and we're going to go back in time, how far are we going to go back in time? Till the beginning of what the cosmologists have established, that the universe started 13.8 billion years ago. So this is 13.8 billion years ago that we are trying to capture. So yes, it's going smaller and smaller and smaller, and this is what's happening to the universe. It's contracting, becoming smaller and smaller till it ends up in a single dot. A single dot, meaning that it proves that everything started from a single point. A single point, which is what the Quran said in another verse. Chapter 21, verse 36. Everything was united. Subhanallah. So these three verses are for people who are scientifically orientated and they want conclusive proof. This must surely be that kind of proof for them if they're really open-minded and persuadable. Because it proves beyond any doubt whatsoever that when the Quran was revealed more than 1400 years ago, it was utterly and totally impossible for anyone to have known this scientific information. Yet the Quran makes it very clear. In the top two verses, it is even reinforced that stars are moving apart from one another as the universe is expanding. And in the first verse, on top, we are saying that the universe, Allah says that the universe is expanding, reinforced by the second verse, and then it ties in with the other verse that everything was united. So as we move forward, the universe is going bigger, and as we go back into time, we get to a point 13.8 billion years ago, where everything was united. Subhanallah. Now, that we can even stop there and say that should be conclusive proof for us. Never mind what the scientists and the atheists and the unbelievers say. For us, we should, in fact, remove whatever doubt, if we had doubt about the existence of Allah, if we still had questions. This should be proof to us that the content of the Quran is absolutely, absolutely untouchable. The content comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the proof of it. So if we move on and we want more proof, then we go to about what is being said about energy in the universe. Now, our sun, scientists have established that the sun uses 7 million tons of gas fuel every single second of its life. And if you were to work that out in a year, it would work out to 220 trillion tons of fuel every year. Every year. How old is the sun? The sun is said to be 5 billion years old. It's in the middle of, according to scientists, it's in the middle of its lifespan. It still has another 5 billion years to go. So if we take 5 billion years, multiply every year by 220 trillion tons of gas fuel, we get to a figure of what the amount of power and energy that the sun is generating. But there are trillions upon trillions of other suns, because the sun is but one of the many stars. Our sun is a star, a cold, referred to as a cold star. It's but one of the many trillions and trillions of stars that we find in the universe. And to make it even more mind-boggling is the fact that as the universe is expanding, and with the passage of time, more new stars are being born, who will in their own right be generating so much power. Now, if you add all of this information together, then your mind is unable to comprehend what we are talking about, just in terms of the sheer amount of energy that's in our universe. And as a quick reminder, when we talk about our universe, we are talking only about the lower heaven. The first of the 7 samawat, the lower one, we talk about the universe. This is what scientists have been able to establish up to now. Now, if you look at that, subhanallah, how can we even fathom when we talk about energy in the universe? How can we even fathom the amount of energy that exists within the universe? Now, if you were to couple that to that sheer astronomical, incalculable amount of energy, and we couple this to what scientists have established, is that the first law of thermodynamics say energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one form to another. So energy can't be created. No new energy can be created. And the current energy that we have can't be destroyed. This is a scientific law, also known as the law of the conservation of energy. They say it's a closed loop. Whatever energy there is remains the same. It just changes form from one form to the other. Subhanallah. Now, if we take this information and we say, where did it originate from, without going into too much detail, it originated from the original spark of energy from which the whole entire universe of ours evolved. Scientists refer to it as the singularity, and we say it was a spark of the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we've dealt with that in how Allah created the universe. So I'm not going to go further into explaining that. But now we come to something that we must think about, reason about, use our intellect. This wonderful thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave human beings, our intellect, our ability to reason and to apply logic to things, and not just to accept things blindly. Anything. If you make food and you put things in the food, then you know that what you have put in the food, you can't use again. It must be replaced now. If you put potatoes in, you must buy more potatoes. If you've used up that, you have to replace it and restock and whatever. It's a general kind of phenomena of how our material world works. If you use petrol in your car, you can only use it for a certain amount, then you have to replace it. It's the way the universe works. But yet, this particular law is entirely different. This law says that the energy is in a loop. It just changes form. There's no energy that needs to be added once it's been used. Now, you can ask all sorts of questions, but if I'm not going to go into that, how it changes from one form to another form to another form, it becomes very scientific, very technical, and I'm not even able to explain it completely. So no new energy is ever added to the universe. Now, how can one explain that, knowing how things work in our material world, that things needs to be restocked and replaced all the time? That when the universe was created, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it with enough energy for its entire existence. That initial spark of energy referred to as the singularity. Even the scientists agree that it contained all the energy of what the universe would need in totality until it doesn't exist anymore. Yet new needs arise. The population of the earth is growing. New stars are born. More energy is being emitted. Yet the energy is sufficient. That is almost a contradiction of how things work normally for us. How can one explain that? It's inexplicable. But the only thing that we can say is that Allah knows. The laws that they are referring to of explaining that the energy in the universe works on the basis of certain principles. What are these principles? These principles are nothing else but them having discovered how Allah works and how Allah designed how energy would be utilized and the laws that will apply to it once it is manifested on the planet Earth. Subhanallah. Now, for me personally, the greatest proof. Now, you can't use this normally as an example to illustrate to people who are not Muslim that the Quran is the greatest proof of the existence of Allah. Because they're going to say, that's your holy book. Of course, you will say that comes from God and it's the greatest proof. We don't accept the Quran. So there, apart from the scientific content that we have just dealt with, some of it now, and there's so much more. Scientific facts that we've discovered now, and scientific facts in the Quran that will be discovered decades from now, centuries from now, where the Quran is speaking about things, but because we don't have the knowledge, we wouldn't understand the importance of certain ayah in the Quran. But apart from the content, the scientific content. There's something else for me personally that is miraculous about the Quran, and that is the preservation. And Allah says that, remember, the time when the Quran was revealed, it was new for mankind at the time. It was just being revealed. But Allah said then already, Allah will preserve it. And we are now 1400 years later, it's still preserved in exactly the form, unchanged in every sense when we talk about the content of the Quran. And yes, there are other divine books that we accept. We accept the Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, that those books were divinely inspired and to the prophets at the time. But they don't exist in their original unchanged form. And the only book in existence is the Holy Quran. Subhanallah. That to me is probably a point that should stand on its own. Now, to make it even more miraculous is the fact that it's a book that has been memorized in totality, with every dot, every iota, every letter has been memorized by the kuffar all over the world since the beginning of the revelation of the Quran. And even children, young children, who are not even of school-going age, memorize the Quran fluently without making any omissions. And if they do make omissions, there will be somebody else that could remind them to say, because they also have memorized the Quran, and the one assists the other if people were to make mistakes, human mistakes, by omitting things or saying the incorrect things. Now, for me, the kuffar of the world are walking miracles. They are absolutely walking miracles, in my view, because one can't even take a page and memorize a page of any book. Never mind the whole book. Never mind memorizing every single iota that's contained in the book. Every comma, every dot, every hyphen. So subhanallah, for me, this, I didn't even want to go into the style, the mathematical structure of the Quran, and the poetic nature of it. There's many books that's been written about those aspects, but I thought for me, the living proof for us should be when we see people, or know about people, or you hear about them, or you listen to them who are kuffar, recognize that you are in the presence of one of the walking, living miracles. Subhanallah. Let us not minimize that experience that we have. So whenever we think about the Quran, see it for what it is, that this is a true miracle, and one of the ways of backing up that claim is the kuffar. That people, when I research this matter, then people from other faiths and other religions made all sorts of other claims and tried to refute the miraculous nature of how the Quran is memorized. But you can see it's just a response but it doesn't deal with the actual issue itself. Subhanallah. Because Allah said so to us in the Quran, even before it was memorized by people. Allah said, Allah made the Quran easy to remember. Chapter 54, verse 17. SubhanAllah. Even if and there was a period in the history of Islam when all the Islamic material that they could find, the hadith, the history of Islam, the Qurans at the time, were all burnt and destroyed. They thought that at the time, when these pagans and disbelievers tried to remove Islam as a threat or as a religion from the face of this earth. And look, today, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. And that Quran still exists in its true form, not only in a hard copy, but within the hearts of the thousands upon thousands of kuffar that we have all over the world. For me, subhanallah, it's not a point that one can put up against. The Quran speaks about the expansion of the universe. This is a close to home point that doesn't sound as romantic and as fancy, but I think it's one of the most powerful proofs of the miraculous nature of the Quran. Now, when we say miraculous, what is miraculous? Definition of miraculous. This is just a few extracts of what I got. Something that's inexplicable, you can't explain it using the laws of nature and science. There's nothing available to explain how this is possible. Or it's referred to, a miracle is referred to, is that which is beyond human ability. It's an impossibility. Somebody has done something. Not only can it not be explained, but it's seen as something impossible. And the other explanation is something that is supernatural. Now, supernatural, super means above natural, what is not normal, what is outside of normal or outside of nature. Now, if we look at that description or these descriptions, then clearly the Quran can be described as a miracle. Now, I think the other thing, of course, that we often use is that it's the only unchanged book on the planet, unchanged revelation on the planet. But we are not able to demonstrate the content. And maybe some of the things that we spoke about earlier, we can now use some of the content, not only the fact that Allah preserved it in the way that Allah did, but the actual content, we should be able to take out some of these verses and use it to prove to people and to ourselves and confirm for ourselves that this Quran is a true miracle. Let me pause there and hear if there's anyone who would like to make a comment or pose a question. Okay, I'm going to move on. Now, I've taken this also from the previous session that we dealt with. And at the time, we had so much to do. There were so many facts, but it's when we were dealing with the amazing human body. And I thought that this is something that is equally miraculous. And I want to remind all of us about this. It's the human body. Allah says, if we look for Allah's signs, we must look on the earth, look around us, look at the universe, look at the sky, look at what's on the planet, and look within yourselves. Now, in that previous session of the human body, we mentioned that the human body has about 100 trillion cells. Trillion. Trillion is 10 followed by 12 notes. Every single human body has around about, some people say 50 trillion, but the majority say 100 trillion. 100 trillion cells, body cells, in every single human being. Now, the amazing part is that every single cell contains a blueprint of the entire human being. Now, if we take a cell and we take the DNA information that is contained within the cells of the body on the chromosomes, is 2 meters of it if you put it all end to end. Each cell contains 2 meters of DNA information. You can do the number, it's very easy. 2 times 100 trillion gives you 200 trillion. And you want to convert it to kilometers, because that's 200 trillion meters. Then you knock off 3 zeros and you come to 2 billion kilometers of information. Subhanallah. 2 billion kilometers of information in each human body. Whoa. Allahu Akbar. Every single person. There's 8 billion people on the planet. How many people have passed on? And how many people still to come? So if we look at this, this is truly one of the signs that Allah referred to us. Because we must remember how these things work. Oh, that Allah forgive me. Or the way one should think about these matters. Allah is referring us to look within ourselves, because Allah knows how Allah constructed the human body, and Allah knows that information is there, and Allah has given us the brains and the ability to come to understand some of these things, not just in our bodies, but in the universe and everything around us. Over time, we will increase our knowledge, and Allah has given us that capacity to develop it. So Allah knows the signs are there. And these are the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's unthinkable that so much information can be contained in every single human being. 2 billion kilometers, we can't even fathom. The sun is only, 93 million miles, 150 million kilometers away from us. Million. But we're talking about 2 billion kilometers. Subhanallah. So, if we look at that, that is just the length of the information. if we put each piece next to each other, now where does it come from? All this information. If you look at now at the human level now, it comes, all the information that is eventually in the human body had to be carried through to the uniform human being, comes from a fertilized seed. The fertilized seed is one entity which contains all of this information. Unthinkable. Subhanallah. Now, this would be, in my view, one of the other examples that's similar to the Big Bang, where Allah created this very complex, ever-expanding universe of ours from a single spark of nur, from one single spark of energy. Allah created this entire universe. Even the scientists agree about that. And the scientists agree that a human body comes from a single cell. All these complex things that develop from a single object for any thinking person. If we use our normal environment around us, you can see that this is truly miraculous. It's supernatural. It can't be a normal thing that one can just explain away and say, yeah, so and so and so and so, and give reasons, whatever. It's unfathomable. Unfathomable. Now, the people, the atheists who say there is no God, they suggest that things happen randomly. It happened spontaneously. It happened by itself. It's self-created. But can they explain how these things actually originated? And even if they can explain it started there, who determines when and how things will happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen? If it's accidental, remember the example that we used last week? Last week we explained about the ship that has no people on it, but it's loaded with goods. It unloads the goods. It sails again and it docks with no people on board. We can't accept that. How can we accept that these other things could happen?
On our website, and then you can make inputs onto that. But
how can we explain that these things can happen without an intelligent source determining where and how things should happen? They're going to use their famous one. No, of course. We can explain that. It's the laws of nature and science. This is how the material world works. It's this law and that law. Are they not just using that term of saying it's the laws of nature and science and physics as another way of referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine laws? Subhanallah. Maybe on the last slide, what I would just want to quickly refer to some things that can assist us to strengthen our own belief, because the more proof we get and the more signs we recognize of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it should make our belief stronger. This is not about supplying proof to non-believers or atheists. or to use the proof as a means of persuading people from other faiths that we are believing correctly. Our first task, very first task, is to strengthen our own belief system. Do we truly solidly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any doubt? Most of us will say yes. But it doesn't mean one can't strengthen that belief by looking at things and recognizing Allah wherever you turn your eyes. And we should do that. Now, the people who normally expect concrete proof that you can test in a laboratory and with experiments, strangely enough, they won't accept our arguments when we present them, for example, with what is written in the Quran and say this comes from God. Where else could it have come from? Explain it to us logically. They won't be able to. They say, no, we can't explain, but you prove to us that it does come from God, and you come to a stalemate there. But the same people are very hypocritical because they accept other information and proof of one thing based on the outcome of something else. I'll give you an example. I didn't know, when I was thinking about this, I didn't know what example to use. But the proof that your coffee has sugar in it, can you see the sugar? You can't see the sugar. But the proof that your coffee has sugar in it is when you taste it. So the sweet taste is the proof of the sugar. It doesn't prove the sugar, but it proves that there is sugar in the coffee. This is as one of the ways where you take one thing, you prove that that is so. You prove that the coffee is sweet. You've tasted it, that's your proof. And now because of that proof, you now prove something else. It's a common way of doing things. I think you can see where I'm coming with this argument. But just to give another example, if you take a cell phone, now if you tell people, oh, so you've got a cell phone, can you prove to me that sound and pictures are transmitted through the air on electromagnetic waves? How can you say that that's how you get pictures and sound? They take out their phone, they switch it on, and they show you that the phone is receiving pictures and transmitting pictures and sound. The fact that the phone is actually doing that is proof of the other thing. So you can, by proving one thing, you can use that as a means of proving something else. Now, people who say there isn't a God, and we've just dealt with, in a very limited way, the complexities of the universe previously and what goes on in the human body. How could all of these things have spontaneously emerged? I just want to remind you of what we said about the universe. There was a period in the universe, many billions of years ago, where there was absolutely nothing except dust. What they refer to as interstellar dust, stardust, nothing else. And there were eruptions and explosions that occurred randomly all over the show. There was utter chaos in the universe at that time. Now from that chaos emerged this organized planet of ours. And it emerged human beings. As complex as we are, all emerged from that period, evolved from that time to where we are today, both the planet and people. Could these things have just sorted itself out spontaneously without someone determining exactly what is going to happen, where, when, and in all this chaos that existed at the time? It's the only way it could have happened. There had to be a divine hand guiding and instructing the process that this is now the time for this to happen, and the time for that, and so on and so on and so on, till we get to what we have. And once we have what we have, to keep and maintain that in the strict, rigid order and balance. It's impossible for all of that to have happened without someone keeping it all together, maintaining it. Creating it first out of all the chaos, and then maintaining it so that it doesn't result in chaos. Subhanallah. Now Allah tells us in the Quran, and this is for us as believers, a reminder. Allah says Allah constructed the universe. Allah, so, but if you look at the universe itself, see the universe as the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some of the signs. Look at our human bodies, we should see the human bodies as signs. So we must actually open our eyes, look for these signs, try and recognize it, so that wherever you turn your face, there's a reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because everything in creation should be a reminder. Every single thing in creation should be a reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we must make effort to understand how things operate so that we can extract and marvel at the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever it is that we are looking at. Because then we are doing justice to it by looking for the signs and making effort to look at the signs of what is around us. If we don't open our eyes, we won't see it. If we don't make effort, we're not going to see it. Let us not be of the people that Allah speaks about in the Quran, where Allah says that they have eyes with which they do not see. Let us be the ones who have used our eyes to try and recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's signs, so that it can remind us that these are not just things in creation. These things have been created by a supreme being who is in charge of everything. The idea of going through the sifat of al-wujud is so that whatever we're going to deal with, we have this at the back of our mind. There is Allah, undoubtedly. We want to know more about Allah, but we've laid the basis and the foundation. The existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that we not only accept, but we understand from the proof that has been given to us that Allah must be there. It's wajib. It's wajib for Allah to be there. And not only to use the information as a means of persuading other people of how right you are and how wrong they are. Or worse even, to use this information as a means of showing off to people how much you know. Just be careful. We expect people to use this information and to pass it on to others. Yes, you must do that. It's wajib on each and every Muslim. Every believer is instructed to take what they know and to make sure that they share this information with others. But don't do it to show that you know. Because you don't know, we don't know, only Allah. Allah is the only one who can claim to know. We know nothing. We are mere vessels, and we have to carry out that particular function the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. We've come to the end of this first sifat now, and we're going to go on to some of the other sifat. It would be important to just press pause for yourself and say, before we move on to the next sifat, what is there still in my mind that I would like to know? Or what am I uncertain about? Or what do I even disagree with? I'm going to open the floor so that we can deal with some of that before we conclude the session. So I'm opening the floor now, inshallah, and taking questions or comments.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Wabda, sister.
I am just thinking that if we are in contact with other people of other religions and they say, but their God, the one, their deity that they believe in, is responsible for what we claim is Allah. So whatever we believe in, they say, but their God does that. How do we get around that?
How would you get around it? What would your response be? Well, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. How would you respond to that person?
To me, because of the Quran and because we are in touch with the content of the Quran, there's proof of references that nobody else would know. But I don't know what they've got.
Okay. I think that it's unfair. It's unfair to throw the question back at you. My apologies. My apologies, Robert. You've asked the question because people might say I'm going to do the same to them if they ask the next question and we did not ask questions. Well, firstly, this my response would be you need to ponder on what I'm saying and reflect on what I'm saying. Is what they are saying right or wrong? The first thing to say is we believe in Allah. How many Allahs are there? There's only one Allah. Do they have a different Allah? They refer to their God, whatever they say their God is. Can one say that there is a Christian God and there's a Muslim God? There is only one God. So the first thing to remember, I must try and get back to it's a hadith that I came across. I didn't give it much thought at the time, but I must get back to it. People believe in that supreme being and use different means and methods going via certain religions and belief systems. We are following what Allah gave to us in the Quran. It's the last message from Allah. But a Christian person who believes in a higher being goes and describes the being as this and that, but is there a special being like that? No. So I would say the point that we must remember is there's one Allah for all of us, one God. If you want to use the word God, it's fine. You can use the word God. It's acceptable to use the word God. It's better to use the word Allah, of course. But if you're speaking to other people and you're referring to God, you are referring to Allah. There's one God for everyone. Are they right to claim that their God created this and not our God? Depending on who you're speaking to, you can fall into a massive trap there, because now choice of words become important. If they are saying, no, you've got the Muslim God and we've got the Christian God, then they're not monotheists anymore, even though they claim to be of the monotheistic group. The Jews and the Christians and the Muslims are considered to be monotheistic, even though there's some points you can make about the Trinity and all of that. But if you say they're considered, then they are actually saying and refuting their own belief. You must first believe there's only one God for everyone. That's what is true monotheism. Who created that? That one that created everything out there and is the God of everyone. He's the one who created that. If you are saying your God, then unless you are believing that there's separate gods, then we would differ with you, because we believe that if you believe in one God, there's only one God. I'm kind of getting into a muddle of how to explain this, but maybe, Warda, if I can just hear from you, what specific aspect would you find difficult to explain to them if you were confronted with this?
I'm now not talking specifically about the religions that we are faced with, because we can, on the Trinity, we can use the point of monotheism. So I think basically it is that if we investigate by their way of belief, if it's truly that they believe that there is only one creator who is responsible for everything, and it doesn't clash, I mean, it from what their belief systems come from, it is just one. Would that be that it is Allah that they also believe in?
This hadith,
depending on how they believe.
The hadith that I came across, and I must find it, and I must make a note somewhere, says that even the idol worshippers, I think that was where I came across it when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was referring to this. I'm even scared to mention it, but I'm going to mention it, seeing that I almost half mentioned it, is that they all believe in Allah, but they don't know that they are believing in Allah. Something like that. I must get the exact wording. In other words, there is no other God. They believed that there was a higher power, but this idol in front of them as a means for them to get to their God. But they believed in this higher power. And this hadith, in a sense, said that there is no other. So you don't even realize it, but if you are believing in one God, then you are believing in Allah, if you understand what I'm saying. But I'm going to leave my response there for now until I get the exact wording of the hadith and then come back to you on that one.
Actually, it is along the principle of that an explanation is that they do not pray to the
Stone.
statue, whatever it is that they have there, but it represents the one deity, and that is what they believe in.
Yeah, if they believe in one.
Then it could be that if it is only one deity, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But okay, I will value it if I could get more information, inshallah.
Shukran. Okay. Next question. Or comments?
Sorry, Mr. Salie.
Walaikum salam, Muhammad.
I just wanted to comment maybe on the concept of a deity. I think that a lot of the arguments of atheists are based off the fact that they look at the universe as being something that one can explain scientifically. And they believe that the world does not have a loving creator, does not have a sustainer. It's, for them, it's a accident. And from this accident, other accidents were created. From others accidents, human beings were created, basically. That is the rationale. But yet, even they have to admit that, I mean, if a person were to calculate all of the accidents that needed to happen for human beings to be here, it would be impossible, entirely impossible for a human being to exist, for all of these aspects and things to be grouped together and sewn together like tapestry in order for human beings to exist, societies to exist, and to be sustained. And yet, so when one looks at how they talk, it's not that they don't believe. In actual fact, I believe atheists do believe, but they deny the existence of God, because when they deny the existence of God, they're actually, if someone doesn't believe in God, they don't have to mention God. You don't have to mention the existence of God if you don't believe in God, but they mention God and they say they don't believe in God. So by virtue of saying they don't believe in God, they actually do believe in God. And I think that, and I think that it's a very important conversation that particularly we must have with the younger generation, because they are also developing these concepts of saying, well, science can prove. So where is the place of the creator and all of these things? Because that is the danger. Young people are actually asking, some will be asking the question, but the concept of God seems foreign to them because they can't see Allah, but they can see science.
Yes. Yeah, Muhammad Rashid, I think you're making a very, very important point, especially about the youth. I must be honest, one of the things that motivated me to start these sessions and to have this focus on especially scientific issues was because of my concern about the youth. Because I believe that we have all the information there to answer them scientifically and not to respond to them in a very, I don't want to use the wrong words, but in a very shallow, unacceptable, almost illogical manner, forcing them to believe without knowing how they believe, it's not going to work. Not anymore. Our children and our grandchildren are going to run away from us if we come with the same kind of responses. But we are able to respond to them. We don't have to run away from science and say, oh, you're talking science. No, I can't speak to you about that, because we can. We can engage them, and we can show them that science is nothing more than an explanation of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the following reasons. And we can take the arguments and respond to it. And if we can't, we must go look for it. But the task of making sure that we explain religion generally and belief in a creator in a way that becomes acceptable, attractive, and understandable to the younger generation is a task and a challenge that rests on all our shoulders. So maybe we fine for now, but are we sure about the next generation or two? That is something that each of us will have to answer, and each of us will have to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, what have we done to answer some of these very technical questions that the kids have come up with? Anyway, last question or comment? Can I hear? All right.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Salie.
Wa alaikum salam, Muhammad.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. I hope you are well too.
Just to add to that, the only difference is that they believe, like we believe all the sifats of Allah belongs to one Allah. But they break up all the sifats into their many different gods. So they believe the sifat of their one God is maybe a God for rain, and then maybe another God for war, and all the different like the Greek mythologists also, and the Hindus, and all these other religions, which contradicts monotheism. So basically, it's just the difference of the belief system between us and them.
Yeah, you see, there's a difference between there being only one Allah and there can't be more than one Allah, and how people believe. Their belief might be wrong, but ultimately there is only one Allah. So can we say because there's only one Allah, everyone is believing correctly? No. Because Allah, that one that we say we all believe in, has given us, if we believe in that one, then that one has given us the guidance, and this is the guidance. So if you're not following this guidance, then your belief in that one creator can't be correct. You are following something that is outside of that. So don't claim to believe correctly if you can't prove that that comes from God. Just another way of saying it. So if you say you believe in many gods, already we can't speak to you because we believe differently. We believe in only one God. You believe in many gods. But we have simplistic understandings of other religions. Like people from other religions have a very, very misguided view and understanding of what Islam is. We should also make sure that if we do speak about other religions, whatever it is, that we speak with understanding of it. Because we're not here, our purpose is not here to break down and attack other religions. We are the Khalifas of Allah on earth. We are supposed to promote love, compassion, understanding, and tolerance, and base it on the way Rasulullah. So if we're unsure about how to do things and what to do, then just think of how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam acted in the specific circumstances around him at the time, and how would he have advised us to act now in our current situation? But clearly, Muhammad, you are right. We cannot condone or agree with people who believe that there are many different gods, because we have one thing very clear that's right at the foundation of our belief, and that is monotheism. Shukran to everyone for your participation, and inshallah, just to give you an idea of what our next this is going to be our next topic. You're going to make a big mistake when you say, oh, Allah has no beginning. Yes, I know that. And that's what you're going to say. And you do know it. And we've touched on it. But let us go beyond just the basic understanding. This is what these sessions are called, beyond the basics. This is extremely powerful sifat to understand correctly. It will assist you to understand many, many, many other things. If you have a grip, a strong grip on the grasp of what the sifat actually means, the deeper meaning behind it, then one can use that and apply it in so many other ways. It will be a great way of strengthening your understanding of who Allah is. So inshallah, this will be next week. And on that note, I want to thank you and say shukran for your participation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy on all of you with whatever you are busy with. And can I just ask Muhammad Fasid, is that Muhammad Farid? Are you still with us? Muhammad Farid Wali? Yeah, I made it late. Muhammad Fasid, are you still with us?
Yes, I am listening. Yes.
Yeah, can you just include, I want to say shukran to everyone for the du'as that they made for the well-being of my wife. My wife is still not well, and ask that you just include her in the dua tonight, inshallah. Tafadal, Muhammad Fasid, the dua.
آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويشفي صدوركم للين وشفاء لما في الصدور نزل من القرآن وشفاء ورحمة للعالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان رب السماوات السبع ورب العرش العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير. دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله.
Shukran jazilan. Muhammad Fasid, and to everyone else, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take good care of you and shower His mercy and blessings on you, your family, and your friends. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.